here we are back at it, and on a youthful perspective, we take a look at the events of the week as we get to round up. And, so much has been happening in terms of, the aspect of graft, the country dealing with graft, that addressed by President Uhuru Kenyatta, the extension of the curfew hours, or the extension of the curfew, yes, for 30 more days. Shocker again to the people who are, out there selling, having operating bars and all that. And so much has been happening. We still hope that indeed all this is for the best of the country. So joining me this morning, and of course as we get to hear their sentiments on the same, is none other than Vivian Tarr, who's a governance analyst, and Isaac Wabuge, political analyst. Now, Vivian, it's been a minute. At least we had Isaac like 2-3 weeks ago. How have you been?
I'm very well. I'm glad to be back.
Good to have you.
And good to see you.
Good to see you too. And Isaac, how are you?
I'm good. I thank God this far has been great.
Yeah?
Yeah, looking forward to an awesome show.
Sure. So thank you so much for finding time for us this morning. And I think we've all been following up on what has been happening in the country. Let's first of all pick it up from President Uhuru Kenyatta's address, the adjustments that were made, the reiterations that he made in regards to us having a constitution. What would you make as a roundup on that particular address that should have been on Wednesday? Vivian.
I think I agree with him, his sentiments, especially around amendments to the Constitution, and the fact that the Constitution is a live document that is not cast on stone and should be amended based on what the country is going through. Remember, one of the issues that's been there, since we started the election cycle in Kenya, there's always been a feeling of, being left out of government, and just acrimony surrounding the whole electioneering process, the whole election process. And so it's great that we have identified that there's a problem. And so I think even as we talk about amending the Constitution, we should focus on IEBC, the Electoral Commission, because a lot of these things, if IEBC can be streamlined to some level, then some of these things we can do away with them. But I agree with the president, and I like that actually this is one of the issues that was raised in the BDI report. The fact that we have acrimonious elections every 5 years. We cannot go on like this. It's not sustainable for the economy. It's not sustainable for growth, and we have to find a way around it. And if expanding the executive for inclusivity is the solution, why not?
All right. Isaac, coming to you, and of course, those are the views of Vivian, but we've also had conversations with numerous Kenyans who are of the idea that there's no point of proceeding to change this constitution. Well, some few amendments can be done at the level of the House, as opposed to subjecting Kenyans to a referendum. The argument, though, is this, that we probably have the best document, and maybe there's not that pressing need as it now that would warrant us going for a referendum. Well, we acknowledge that indeed the Constitution is a live document, and the fact that it is dynamic in nature, hence that need to, constantly review it. Most of the Kenyans, or, Kenyans, as a sector of Kenyans, sort of feel like maybe there's no need for us to proceed and make changes on this Constitution. Instead, ensure that we are able to implement it to the maximum, which is something that we've not done. A majority will argue that we've not even implemented a quarter of it. What do you make of this?
Yeah, for me, first of all, it was quite unfortunate to hear the president in the midst of this pandemic talking of a constitutional moment in Kenya. Well, a constitutional moment is not precipitated by a handshake between two people on the stairs of a Harambee House. A constitution moment is something that is a feeling, it is a euphoric feeling among the masses that we have had a document that has not served us for ages. So it is a moment for us to change our mode of governance. And it was this essence of a euphoric nature and excitement among Kenyans that then we will define a constitutional moment, like what happened in 2000. That's when the CKRC and the Boomers conference was called. And when you see the representation of Boomers, is that it took care of each and every individual in this country who came and spoke their mind. But now, after the 2005 referendum of the banana and the orange, and we know that the banana won and it led to, actually that was the last nail of the coffin of the NARC government. So proceeding to that is when now after the 2007 post-election violence is now again where we go to the committee of experts to review. What the committee of experts did is that they just took over the Bomas draft. That was a draft that had the pulse of the Kenyans in it. That's the constitution that was created by the Kenyans for the Kenyans themselves. And remember, when this draft was taken by the MPs to Naivasha to debate about it, these people again mutilated the Wanjiku constitution. We are seeing the same characters and players who are in Naivasha mutilating the Bomas draft, now calling for a constitutional moment in Kenya again. What does this tell you? We are, as a country, we are we are in the midst of a pandemic that has not only brought down the economy of this country, but totally nowhere in this country is the economy functioning. One.
Isaac, let me ask this question, Let me ask this question. We are in the middle of a pandemic that we all agree. But remember, the conversation of change of the constitution started way before, of course, the pandemic hit us. Most of the countries globally are going for an election. They say, well, our pandemic would not stop them. Most of them are continuing to conduct their political businesses as usual. What makes you think that maybe it would be wise for, of course, our leaders to shelve the talk of, change of the constitution because of the pandemic?
I was coming to that. Why we shouldn't go the constitutional way right now is that, as you rightly put it when you started, is that we have never implemented this constitution. Why should we go back to a plebiscite or a referendum over a document that has never been implemented fully? That one shows or points us that this is just a selfish engagement from the political class who wants to now to hijack this. And you see, that's why I was building my case and telling you, the Bomas draft, which 80% is what we have right now, it was a Wanjiku document. And that's why it made it very difficult for any amendment, especially matters to deal with how people are governed, that for you to amend this, it had to go through a referendum. So the constitution is for the people. The people needed to guide it and protect it and safeguard it. We are having a constitution. Let me just highlight and tell you that the Constitution of Kenya 2010, when you look at the Bill of Rights, that one is the most amazing Bill of Rights in any constitution in this country, in the world, not in this country, in the world, globally. We are ranked the best in terms of our Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights in the 2010 Constitution is so specific to the end that it talks to the ordinary things as much as the right to water, the right to food, the right to security. Have we implemented this? No. We have not implemented even a quarter of the Bill of Rights. Even devolution, the only thing that would have given a tick on the implementation. Right now, as we are talking, we still have a stalemate on the division of revenue. What does that speak to? It speaks to a constitution that has not been implemented, because had we implemented that constitution, we would have known that in every financial year, this percentage of the national revenue goes to the counties. Without all this, what is happening on the aspect of governance? When we say that the winner takes it all, and other people feel left out of government, we are in a democratic country, in a democratic space where we have winners losers.
Okay, so
And for that, having that in mind, you cannot say that now when a winner wins and the loser loses, the work of the loser is prescribed in the constitution, clear that they are supposed to put checks and balances to the government of the day.
Yeah.
So if we are talking that then we need to expand the executive so that even the losers feel part of it.
hold it right there.
Yeah.
Hold it right there. And probably, well, as many would argue, not all the losers would be there anyway, because when you're talking about a loser, it's not just an individual. Coming back to you, Vivian, and, the 2/3 gender rule is one of the key issues that have brought us to this conversation of us not being able, to say that, confidently this constitution has worked for us. And we're not able to get hold of Vivian, but anyway, once she's back, we'll loop her in on this. But Isaac, coming back to you. Oh, Vivian is back. All right. Vivian, coming to you, while we say that there's need for, constitutional change, we've not been able to attain the 2/3 gender rule. And now the conversation on ground has even switched. Some of the people sort of feel like, maybe this clause should be scrapped off because it's unrealistic. What is left of the women? Vivian.
Please repeat that. I didn't get the question. Sorry. Please repeat.
No, I'm saying one of the key things that has gotten us to a point of rethinking the current constitution is the fact that we've not been able to attain the 2/3 gender rule. And some pundits arguing that maybe there's need to, scrap off the clause of 2/3 gender rule if we are to chart the way forward on a new constitution. What will be left of the women in terms of incorporating them in leadership?
Okay. My audio has a problem, so I didn't hear you clearly.
Let's try and fix that. Isaac, have you been able to get a hold of that question? Have you gotten that question? Yes, all right.
Yes. You see, and this just edifies my argument that we don't need to review this constitution right now. The aspect of 2/3 gender rule is a sensitive aspect. There are countries that have fulfilled this without too much forth and back. We have Rwanda that has successfully implemented the aspect of 2/3 gender rule. As I keep on telling you, engaging that, as a country, we need to put ourselves on the yardstick of the absolute best. We have countries like Finland, New Zealand, and top countries out there who have been able to implement this fully. So that's why we are saying, if at all we are not able to implement something as basic as the 2/3 gender rule that is enshrined in the Constitution, why are we thinking of amending this Constitution right now? You see, this one just calls to a lame excuse that just wants to go and address something that will not benefit the Mwananchi. So if we're told now the conversation is changing, that we need to scrap this 2/3 gender rule. What excites me, Alela, is that the politics of life, what excites me is the politics of life that aims to smash the glass ceilings for, let us say, gender. So if right now our political class is feeling it is a high time that we even scrap this gender, what are we talking to our girls? Are we trying to limit their ambition?
Right.
The women have been sidelined for ages in this country. By going that way, we are trying to tell women that, indeed, your space is in the kitchen. You need to control how far your ambition should go. And that is very wrong. I am a father of girls. I want my girls to go out there and spread their wings and aim high. So if they are called into leadership position, let them go and excel there. Let us not have a law that will discriminate against them, but let us implement this law that gives them that leverage, that leverages on what we have already placed in the position to push them higher.
What would be your expectations for the final report of the BBI? President Uhuru Kenyatta has been on the forefront championing for 2/3 gender rule to be implemented, something that has not sailed through. Why is still a question up until date. And Right Honorable Raila Odinga equally has been on the forefront championing for the same. So even as we await that report or the final report from the task force, do you suppose that this will be incorporated? Do you suppose that then some of the proposals that are going to be within the BBI are going to be for the interest of the common mwananchi and moving forward. Vivian, is you there? Let's go back to you, Isaac. I'm sure you've heard me.
Yes, I've heard you. The changes, that's why I started by saying that a handshake of two people who competed against each other in an election, when they have a handshake on the stairs of Arambia, does not constitute a constitutional moment. This country, basically, what we are seeing is a regrouping of the political elite trying to judge their own destinies at the expense of the destiny of the country. What I expect is that most of, when we meet at Bomas to unveil the BI report, majority of the submission of the people or whatever was captured were policy and administrative issues that can be implemented without a constitutional referendum. But when it comes, where the rubber meets the road in this essence is that the changes in how people are governed, that one can only supported by a referendum. So what are we trying to say? We are trying to say, let us expand the executive. So by expanding the executive, we are trying to make it easy for alliances here and there. And these alliances, unfortunately, are pegged on tribal lines. So how do we come up with a lineup that is able to embrace, let us say, the top communities in Kenya? We have seen it has been in the media when the week started. We have seen the meetings in Kajiado of the Court of General. We have seen you people in media carrying some a publication about the supposed coalition cooking. That is what is being prepared for the BBI. But when you look at it, for once, I have been a fan of the ANC party leader. He says, why can't we concentrate on the economy? If we sort out this economy, we will not even need these constitutional changes. Everybody will feel at place. What is the need of my tribe being part of the executive position that are going to be created? Yet myself as a farm, I cannot sell my produce to the government. I cannot make a shilling. Why should my kinsman from my tribe of Mulembe be the president of this country in the new formation? Yet I don't have money, business is not thriving. Are you seeing where I'm coming from? Yeah. And when you see all these people who are lining up for this position, these are octogenarians who actually have nothing to offer this country, nothing new to offer. They have been in this political space for more than at least the minimum, at least maybe 3 decades. So you are trying to tell me what new and what angle are they going to take that is to address a constitutional moment or change that is going to open opportunities for a new generation.
All right. Well,
absolutely not.
Okay, well, we wait to see what will happen and how Kenyans are going to receive this, because as it is, the key leaders maintain that there has to be a referendum no matter what or regardless of what. And that aside, there's been a cool crackdown on matters corruption right here in the country this week, waking up to, of course, Obadu's case, waking up to Manduku's case, waking up to Aisha Jumwa's case, waking up to KEMSA graft probe, waking up to, this one from the Giritas, that is an NYS scandal, reviving numerous cases, and waking up to also that one that has seen a conversation on matters, Mara Haste being addressed. Are we headed towards the right direction?
I think our fathers woke up to headlines of the Golden Bank cases.
Yeah.
Myself, I woke up listening to Anglo-Lisi. I woke up to listening to NYS making headlines. I woke up listening to the Triton scandal.
Yeah.
I woke up listening to the chicken scandal in this country. All these things have come with so much pressure to a point where we realize once this one corruption is on the right path, but it just gets somewhere, it fizzles out, the pressure fizzles out.
Don't you think the effort is different this time around?
This week has been good, but what I'm trying to argue is that why is it that in this country, since independence, we have never had a full-blown case, end-to-end finishing, and people being jailed for their sins. It remains to be most of the time there is too much lip service in our headlines here and there, as much as we acknowledge that indeed corruption is messing this country up. I don't want to point a full picture of this. What I want to believe is that the 2010 Constitution gave us the structures and institutions. We have the office of the DPP, the office of the DCI. These are independent offices. We have the Anti-Corruption Commission. I want to trust that these people, for once, they are going to lead us into a fundamental closure of a corruption case, where we will also look behind and it's say, one, our money has been recovered. Two, you remember Alela a few years back, maybe 2-3 years, we signed an agreement with the Swiss government and other top governments in Europe about the country, repatriation of funds.
No progress so far.
What happened? What happened about that? Can we go where Nigeria took upon the Sani Abacha loot across the country? They even set up a commission saying, can we have a commission that will set rules and guidance how we are going to use this money? It's quite unfortunate that, one, the 2010 Constitution was taken over by leaders who did not have the pulse to implement it. They did not have the bare-knuckle approach to implement this Constitution. And what happened immediately in the run-up to the 2013 election? They mutilated the most important chapter in that Constitution, chapter 6 of leadership. So that, you see, even up to right now, we don't have the moral pitch to push the things. How can a governor and his entire family have been found, their fingers have been found in the cookie just stealing public funds, yet he's still in office? Where does that happen? How is it that Aisha Juma is still a member of parliament in this country? Yet we also see it has gotten so bad that nowadays it's not even about your community, it's about your family. You steal and stash the money in your children's account. Because this is quite unfortunate. I'm so embarrassed about Tobago that you can spend a night, 7 nights in the police cell alongside your children. What legacy are you building for your own children? That is a big shame. And we need to pull out these people. We need to pull out of that and say you have failed as the head of your family, give alone a government. The people of Migori right now should have been in intense movement. People agitating for the removal of this government. Same as Aisha Juma. Same as every citizen in this country. When we are talking of the 3 billion of KEMSA that cannot be accounted for, it is business as usual. We are still waiting. Yes, the president has pronounced himself on it, but we need to see more than just this pronouncement. We need to see actual, you see, like the way small graft people here, the way the status from NATO recently, and other things. We need to see action. Not just too much conversation about this corruption. We have talked about corruption, so you can let me just take you back slightly. Right. If I told the chicken gets scam perpetrators in the US were arrested and convicted, and actually most of them, I think they are finishing their jail term. But in Kenya, where is that file? Have you heard of it? So this just points into, I won't be shocked if I don't get something just fizzles out. All the top people I need.
You expect nothing from what President Uhuru Kenyatta said, giving us an ultimatum, giving the investigative agencies an ultimatum of 21 days to get answers, to at least, gather good evidence. I'm managing my expectations. If it happens, we will get excited that indeed the country is on the right track. But if it fizzles out, we should just realize this is Kenya. Yeah? This is Kenya. All these things have happened in the past, and files are somewhere rotting. Also, I'm telling you, chicken gets scandaled in the US, people are finishing their jail term, while in Kenya we forgot about it and moved on. Wow, all right, that is on graft. I wish we would have been able to get a hold of Lillian to get her take, but then again, we've not been able to fix that sound. But all the same, we'll have her some other time to expound some more on that. Still on you, Isaac, and we now cross over to a different subject, that is on the Senate stalemate or revenue share stalemate. You know, it's been a revenue share stalemate, but officially has been considered as a Senate's stalemate because for months now, they've not been able to give us answers. But today, they tell us that there is some ray of hope. And the 12-member committee has deliberated on this, and they have come up with a tangible solution that is going to ensure that we get equitable share of resources across the counties. Is this even realistic as it stands?
You know, the most unfortunate bit is that this, whatever crisis we are in is defined in the Constitution. That's why we are saying, why can't we just implement this damn thing about everything? This thing has been defined in the Constitution. But because successive governments every time see devolution, moreover, a way that is taking money away from the government, the central government, to other units, fighting devolution has been there in the Kenyan history. History guides me that the Lancaster Conference had proposed Majimbo system. But Majimbo failed miserably because the government, in its own strategy, just made sure that the resources don't get to the Jimbos. And that's how the first Majimbo, that was the first approach of Kenya to devolution. And we are seeing this. As much as President Kenyatta tried to exonerate himself and say, you know what, this money does not belong to me. But it's a high time for the president. We have to come to the reality that we are in the handshake government right now. And anytime there is a crisis in this country, and we look up to State House for answers, the State House is very silent. When we have a crisis in this country that needs leadership and we look up to Capitol, Capitol is silent. So we have been subjected to, Kenyans have been subjected to tweets. Right now, we want a solution to this, but the only thing we can hear is tweets from Kipchumba Murkomen saying, I think yesterday he was quoting Churchill that I think it's just the end of the beginning of something like that. A tweet that clearly tells you that there is nothing in sight. Why can't the Senate, being the house that is mandated to discuss matters of devolution, for once, why can't they be serious with their job? Because them going out will build consensus and give us a solution, maybe in 3 or 4 days. I think we are on a 10 or so. The only thing we are being fed on is tweets. This one just points to unpaid leadership. This points to a country that already has a defined procedure and not actually a formula, but indices. The Constitution has given out indices on how this revenue is supposed to be shared. But since some part of the leadership elite feels more entitled than the others, they feel it is better for us to mess up other counties for the sake of others, which is quite unfortunate. Once again, I go back to just saying, this thing is in the Constitution. Had we tried, had we had political goodwill to implement this Constitution 2010 to the latter, we wouldn't be here right now.
All right. Well, okay. And if I'm being told that we've managed to get a hold of Vivian. Vivian, we are on the last laps, and we have not gotten your view on, of course, the revenue share stalemate in the counties. We've not had this conversation with you because you've not been around. But all the same, I'd love to hear whether you think there's going to be a reprieve indeed, finally, as the committee has promised us.
Oh, yes, for sure. It's taken a long time, but I think we're going to be 10th time lucky. I believe the special Senate committee that was selected to, find a consensus on this issue I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say in regard to the revenue sharing. But I had Isaac say something earlier on that I'm not quite in agreement with.
Yeah.
Capitol Hill is not the place where, whenever you want everything, you go to.
Yeah.
This country has elected leaders. This country has a president, a deputy president, governors, senators, members of parliament. Nobody elected Raila Odinga, His Excellency Raila Odinga, to be president or deputy president in this country. So to say that you're looking to Capitol Hill to talk about, issues, I think is being insincere. So
can we agree and say that the Capitol Hill is interpreting government policy even more than the people in government? That's why we have said the Jubilee government died a natural death, and now we have the hands.
And an acknowledgement of the same by the Deputy President himself, on one of the local stations, says that, there's a problem.
Capitol Hill is interpreting government policy more than the President and the Deputy. So it's a handshake government.
Is it the case?
It's not constitutional.
It is a handshake government, granted, it's true. But it doesn't mean that Capitol Hill is where government policy is set, or where everything you need comes from. If there's graft in the country, it is not Capitol Hill's job description to act in the manner that you deem fit.
Do you suppose that we've been unfair then on the occupants of Capitol Hill, because for the longest of time there's been that conversation that, you guys have forgotten that you're opposition, you've crossed over to this side, you're not pointing the ills of the society. Are we being hypocritical in approaching this, in pointing fingers at them, in, laying the burden on their hands?
I think there's a lot of hypocrisy, to be honest, Linda. All this time, we've had so many scandals. We've had NYS, we've had the sugar scandal. There's been so many scandals. And when President Uhuru Kenyatta took office, one of his biggest priorities, according to him, was to tackle corruption. So actually, we should be getting, a lead from the office of the president, from the office of the deputy president, not so much the office of the former prime minister. If he talks about it, it's okay. But this thing was a promise. When they took office, this was an election campaign issue. We're going to tackle corruption. So let's see the government and the president lead from the front. Let's see the deputy president lead from the front. It's a joint ticket after all, right? There's a reason it's a joint ticket, so they should be speaking from the same language. If they're having differences, it's not the problem of the citizens of the Wananchi. They agreed to run on a joint ticket. They need to find a way to deal with this. So it's ridiculous that they should be reading from different scripts. And this whole notion of always trying to blame the Right Honorable Raila Odinga for doing this or not doing this, it really is not. It's his prerogative to talk about the things he wants to talk about, and move forward. The country really did not elect him, so let's work with the leaders we have. We have President Uhuru Kenyatta, we have the Deputy President Dr. William Ruto. We want to see them lead this war on corruption from the front. We are tired of the rhetoric, and we want to see action now. And actually, in speaking about graft, it's a very good thing that there was a conviction given on the Honorable Waluke, the MP. And right now we've seen DCI, the office of the DCI, approve a lot more arrests. The latest one being the one of the governor and his children. We've also seen very recently, I think yesterday, the approval for the arrest of the Honorable Aisha Jumwa, and a lot more. So it's commendable to see that a lot more prosecution is going to be taking place. It will be interesting, and it will be really good to see the judiciary, follow due process, and let's have some convictions in corruption. I also really like that the Asset Recovery Agency has been recovering, property and, money that is clearly gotten from graft, as we have seen from the NYS Rita's case. I think this is commendable. We can do a lot more of this. Then I think we can tighten this war on corruption.
And a lot more is what we are all hoping to do. As we get to wind up, Victor, unless you have something more to add, I think it will be noble for us to call it a day at that particular point. It's Friday, so we don't want to do so much of politics. We ease it up a bit, we get a little bit formal as we cross over to some bit of entertainment.
Sure. I think what I want just to speak on as we conclude is that personally, since I became an adult who can exercise my democratic right, I've voted for Honorable Raila Odinga throughout. What basically happens here is that Honorable, when the Right Honorable stood on the staircase of Harambee House and convinced us to join the handshake. There were the 9 tenets upon which the handshake was enshrined on, and among them was to fight corruption. So when we call out Capitol Hill, we are calling it out because there was a commitment from our leader that he is going to help the president fight corruption. Another thing is that I think when we look back, we'll realize that there has been more cabinet delegations to Capitol Hill as opposed to the office of the deputy president. This is a reality that we cannot run away, that indeed the deputy president has been sidelined from the government. He is a spectator, as some newspaper put a headline recently. And even himself, he has acknowledged that indeed he is a spectator in government right now. So the fact is that we have the handshake government right now. And as much as Raila Odinga is not in government, as a leader of opposition, he needs to put checks and balances. So if at all we look at how the ODM has come out to handle the past scandals, be it the NYS, be it the chicken gate, be it the Anglo-leasing, they came out with vigor. But right now, when it's the corruption is happening now, we see a laissez-faire approach to this. So that one makes us wonder what is happening. So that is our reasoning why we say Raila needs to be, he is part of government right now. He is at the center of government as the handshake government is constituted right now. And we expect him to lead. And even if he's not part of the government, as a leader, last time he gave an order in Mombasa. You remember when the accident happened in Mombasa, and he ordered and said, let the construction stop happening here. And the people in Jubilee went there and started shouting and saying, in whose capacity is he talking? And he came out and defended himself and said, I am talking in my capacity as a citizen of this country. And it's just not a citizen, but it's a citizen who has been elected over and my vote counting was 2 million last election. So I would place a patriotic demand on him to come out in strength and in vitality to talk about this things happening in the country.
Thank you so much, Isaac. And to you, Vivian, as we wind up.
It's interesting the issues Isaac has raised, but the truth is Raila Odinga is in opposition government. He is collaborating with the president under the handshake, but he does not hold any official position in government. And so putting your expectations, or whatever they are, is a bit, I can call it unfair criticism. And the party ODM has always done, has always called out corruption. It never, even in this case, of KEMSA and the recent corruption cases, the party at no time condoned it, but actually called for an audit of the issues that are happening there. So I think it's a bit unfair to expect that, the Raila Odinga will carry the burden of your expectations. That should be actually given and left to the leaders who are elected. Raila Odinga is entitled to his opinion in all matters as a leader of the people and as the people's president. But to put it, to make it look like the buck stops with him is a bit unfair.
Well, of course, this is something that has been debated on by very many people. Some argue, it's time that you also go out there and deal with issues. You've always depended on him to address some of these issues. Others argue that, yes, he's supposed to,
Sorry, I know you had asked me some question some time back, and I didn't really get to give my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
About the 2/3 gender and gender representation in general in regards to the Constitution. I think as we talk about constitutional review, that is one of the key things that we should look at, how we can have it entrenched within the Constitution, and not just entrenched but implemented, because as we know, given from the last census, women are slightly a majority in Kenya, and we need to see this representation translate into political leadership and into every sphere of leadership in Kenya. And if we can have, for example, Parliament lead from the front. I know in the county assemblies this was already entrenched and it's now implemented. Representation of both gender is balanced, but in the National Assembly it's not yet. In Senate it has been. In Cabinet I think we slightly have just a few more women than men, but we want to see this, especially gendered governorship, where we have a good representation of women in the governorship seat, and we just want to see more representation. One of the things I think as women in Kenya we really need to push for, but not just as women, but the entire citizenship of Kenya.
All right. Thank you so much, Vivian Taa, governance analyst, and Isaac Wabuge, political analyst. Great views right there in regards to the issues that are making headlines. We'll be having more and more of this conversation. Remember, it's important that we deliberate on them, because that's where we get to find solutions, or that's where we get to find policies that guide us to achieve development for the people, to achieve a good country for the people. And on that very note, I think we call it a day as we cross over to Martha's Entertainment. Like I said earlier on, Nancy Kimoyo is on standby, also has the DJ who is going to be there to ensure that they get to entertain you. Be part of the session all the way to 9 a.m. Otherwise, from me, it's a wrap. Thank you so much. My name is Linda Alelo.